Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Aquí tienen el horario para hoy, lunes, el 25 de septiembre, final week of the first quarter. Due today are exercises 2 and 3 on page 19. Nothing due for Wednesday's class. Daily objectives for today: practice how to describe the weather in Spanish, identifying varying climates and weather patterns throughout the Spanish-speaking world. Read, listen to, and understand information about activities people like and don't like to do. Your warm-up question for today, utilizing the notes from last class: ¿Qué tiempo hace hoy? Hoy. Need to delete one of those two. What is the weather like today, or how's the weather today? Utilizing the vocabulary that we went over last class on page 18 of the textbook. ¿Qué tiempo hace hoy? ¿Qué tiempo hace? What's the weather like today? ¿Hace sol? ¿Hace calor? ¿Hace frío? ¿Hace viento? ¿Llueve? Or nieva? Certainly you can say what it's not like certainly no nieva, no llueve, if you want to describe the weather, but pick two of those descriptions on page 18 to describe the weather today. We'll review the notes on page 18 of the textbook. We'll do the guided practice, exercise 4, Dos Hemisferios, getting a little bit more practice of weather, and then we'll take a look at your homework that was due for today, exercises 2 and 3 on page 19. Go over some new notes for Chapter 1A. Begin Chapter 1A together by looking at the video Historia, using that vocabulary in practice, and then answering the comprehension questions on page 29 that has to do with the video, and then wrapping up with a little bit of guided practice using the vocabulary by doing exercise 5 in the textbook on page 30. All right, so going back up to the top here, exercise 4, Dos Hemisferios. Let's take a look at that before we review your homework that is due for today. So, as I was sharing with you guys potentially last week, can't remember which class I may have mentioned it, but yeah, the temperature obviously varies in our planet as to whether or not you're in the northern or southern hemispheres. When I say temperature, I should say the seasons vary depending upon what kind of or which hemisphere you're in the northern or southern hemispheres. The seasons are the opposite. So as it says here in the reading, Colorado in December would be the same as Argentina, in July, right? Opposite parts of the world, opposite hemispheres, opposite times of the year when you have the spring, summer, fall, and winter seasons. So here you have a map or a globe, the different geographical locations, and then questions pertaining to each. So for example, in febrero, ¿Qué tiempo hace en Chile? If we're in Chile in February, and remember, the seasons are the opposite. So February here in the United States, in Northern California, would be winter, correct? So the opposite of winter in Chile in febrero would be, taking a look at your notes again, winter is el invierno.
El invierno.
In febrero in Chile, el verano.
El verano.
And then it's asking, ¿Qué tiempo hace? What kind of weather? ¿Qué tiempo hace? What's the weather like in Chile in febrero? Well, hace sol, right? It's summertime. Hace calor, también. We can assume that it's warm and sunny in Chile in febrero. Kind of a mind shift, if you will, because again, the seasons are opposite during the same time of year. So, number 2, en junio, ¿qué tiempo hace en Colorado? What is the weather like in the state of Colorado in June? And then in tu comunidad, in our community, ¿qué tiempo hace en diciembre y en agosto? what is the weather like in our community in December and in August? All right, so you can answer those questions with just short phrases describing the weather. And again, that's the notes that we looked at together on page 18. Next, we're going to start chapter 1A, next we are going to look at the homework that you had to do for today, and that's exercises 2 and 3. So for exercise 2 on page 19, you have to indicate, or rather facilitate, a dialogue where the question, part A, is utilizing the elements provided to ask about what the weather is like, ¿qué tiempo hace, in a particular part of the state, or in the particular part of the United States, for example, Miami, and then particular month of the year. So for example, Julio. What's the weather like in this city during this time of year? ¿Qué tiempo hace en Miami in Julio? And then the picture gives you the answer. So you need to match the picture with one of those phrases on page 18. So again, for example, ¿qué tiempo hace en Miami en Julio? Hace sol. ¿Qué tiempo hace en Denver en enero? Nieva, or hace frío. Nieva, hace frío. ¿Qué tiempo hace en Chicago en octubre? Hace viento. Hace mucho viento in Chicago. Chicago's famous for that. They call it the Windy City. All right, so finish the rest of those about the different cities in the United States. And then for exercise 3, answer the following questions based on where you live. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area, ¿qué tiempo hace en primavera? What is the weather like in spring? Well, hace viento un poco y llueve. Springtime, we usually get a little bit of rain and wind. Second part of number 1, en el otoño, en el verano, y en el invierno. So you're going to describe the weather in the San Francisco Bay Area using those different expressions of weather according to the different seasons. ¿En qué estación hace frío? Calor, sol, viento. In what season is it cold, hot, sunny, and windy? Hace frío en el invierno. Hace sol en el verano, etc. So begin with those expressions of weather, right? Hace frío, hace calor, hace sol. Begin your responses with those expressions of weather, and then just indicate the season. Same thing for 3 and 4. In what season does it rain? And in what season does it snow? Llueve en la primavera. Nieva, well, really, in our area, no nieva, ¿cierto? No nieva, nunca nieva. Never snows. Very rarely, if ever, does it snow here where we live. All right, so that was exercises 2 and 3 due for today in Canvas. You can take a picture of what you have in your notebooks. That'll suffice. You can type out your responses and submit. Up to you. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the new notes for Chapter 1A. This handout's going to be given to you during class. So you guys are going to use the textbook. And the textbook at the very back provides a glossary. Let's see what page that's on. At 22. Looks like on page 46 of the textbook you have a glossary of all the key terms for this chapter. So utilizing this glossary and the pictures provided as you do the vocabulario, a ver en la página, vocabulario en contexto en la página 26. So utilizing these pictures and the glossary on page 46, I'd like you to go ahead and fill out your study sheet, vocabulary sheet. All of these expressions you have in Spanish, please write the English equivalent in the space provided. And again, the answers or the translations you can find on page 46 of the textbook and also page 26 utilizing the pictures there. All right, after we go through that together and practice the pronunciation, we'll watch the video historia ¿Qué te gusta hacer? On pages 28 and 29. There'll be some comprehension questions based on what you see in the script there on pages 28 and 29, and based on what you hear and can see in the video. You guys are going to write C for cierto, true, and F for falso, false, if the statements, based on whether or not the statements are true or false. So for example, number 1, Angelica, according to Angelica, she says, no me gusta montar en bicicleta. Based on what you see in the script and what you see in the video, is that a true, cierto, or false, falso statement? I'm going to try to push you guys to see if you can not only indicate the statements that are false, but also change the wording of the statements so that they read true. All right, and then the last thing we're going to do today is vocabulario en uso, exercise 5. ¿Te gusta or no te gusta? So, te gusta is asking, do you like? Or no te gusta, do you not like? So, taking a look at the different activities pictured here in exercise 5, you're going to choose them, and any other activities shown in the vocabulario en contexto in the textbook on pages 26 and 27. Indicate things that you like, me gusta, things that you don't like, no me gusta, things that you like a lot, me gusta mucho. Number 4, things that you don't like at all, no me gusta nada. Number 5 and number 1 are essentially the same, so just a repetition of something that you like. And then finally, number 6, 2 things that you do not like. And you're just going to fill in each blank with a different activity there. All right, so that is our agenda for today. Again, no homework is due at all for next class. The only thing that you need to turn in by midnight tonight is your exercises 2 and 3 on page 19.